We pretty much do the same. We kind of build them up during the week. You know what I'm saying? We start off, and then as the week progresses, we kind of build it up, and we're just, just trying to be mindful of what the players have from a standpoint of, the second day. So tomorrow, then obviously on Friday. So we just try to, keep in our mind, the two work days right in a row. We've had a couple of those coming in. 1 day on, 1 day off, then going to 2 days because of the holiday schedule and things that we had to do on the Mondays. So, we're kind of aware, and the players have adapted well to it. Same schedule we kind of used last year. So I think you just got to be mindful of what the players are doing, so you don't put them in jeopardy.
With Miles Jack out, it seems like Donald Payne's getting a lot of opportunities. He converted to linebacker last year, really didn't play a lot. How well has he done this offseason?
Yeah, I mean, he came into us as a linebacker, but I know he was converted prior to that. And I think last year what we saw is someone that had really good speed, was able to contribute on special teams. But, when we really didn't know from a standpoint of, hey, a full training camp or things of that nature, or playing the position, making the calls, doing all that from a communication standpoint. So I think with Miles on the side, he's gotten in there, and he's done a nice job. I mean, you can see he's picked up the communication. I think he's picked up the system well. Now it's just a matter of when we go to training camp, can he get out there and actually make the plays that you simulate as a coach. During this type of year, that you see a player out there and you're like, oh, he made that play. Can he make that play when it counts and when it's live? So I think that Donald's done a good job of putting himself in that position, and I think he's done a good job. And the thing that is probably the most impressive is that sometimes when guys have this opportunity, you see another level of their game go down. So for Donald's case, like special teams, so you'll see him putting a lot of time into playing linebacker and the special teams going down. We haven't seen that, so that's a good sign in a player. He's been able to keep both of those things going at a pretty high level.
2 weeks in, has Blake looked the way you'd expect him as a guy familiar with the system, second year with Nate?
Yeah, I don't. I think it's the same thing. We're always keep trying to, just push everyone along, just keep getting better. He's in that same boat as a lot of players, and just really harping on the consistency that we need. And the situational awareness when we get into situations, getting better at that. So I think those are all the things that we keep trying to get done. Again, I still think it's different when you have a live rush, coming at you for any quarterback. But, he's pushing just like everyone else. He's not different, or any different than a lot of the rest of the players that are out there and what they're going through. We're trying to, again, I'll reiterate, we're trying to lay this foundation so there's no cracks in it, and trying to get out there, work through some things, see, obviously it's a new team, it's a new year, trying to see what we can do, and then set our schedule for the training camp where we can, move forward.
Chad Henne had been here a while, obviously immersed in the offense. How can Cody Kessler help Blake? I mean, can he get to a point where he can help Blake? Like, obviously not the way Chad did, but.
Yeah, I don't think I look at it as far as like, you have to be here for a long period of time, or, you had to grow up together, or maybe throw together, or hang out, you know what I'm saying? But I think there is something, a way that when, in any room, not just the quarterback room, when people come in there, how they support each other, how they all work together, how they push one another is important. Not just in the quarterback room, but every room, and I see that in a lot of the rooms that we have. So that's something that's, that's encouraging. And it's, again, I'm going to state this fact again. It's easier to do now when there's not as much adversity, when you're not out there playing. But again, you'd rather see it here and then make sure that carries over to once the season comes.
Kessler guy seems to be picking up the offense quickly.
Yeah, I think it's the same thing. There's some things that he's being taught that are quite different. And, he's working through that. He acknowledges that. I've talked to him about it. And it's just kind of, just trying to, break some habits and get him into, some of the habits that we need him to do. So he's working his butt off to do that.
Doug, you mentioned Miles on the side, but is there do you want to kind of get him out there before the end of the offseason program with a full group, or you
Yeah, I think right now we've got to make a decision. It comes down to that. It's like hey, what do we want to do? Do we want to, put him out there now? He's done so well. and see where it goes. And there's obviously there's risk with anyone that's out there. But I think, we're probably looking to see him out there for the mandatory minicamp. And we haven't made a final decision on it yet. But I think, I wouldn't be surprised if he did that. If he didn't, if he wasn't out there for the mandatory minicamp, it's solely my decision. It wouldn't be a medical decision.
What have you seen out of Will Richardson?
Well, he had an unfortunate incident. He had to take 2 personal days, to go back home. But, again, the consistency, I think, getting in here, it's very difficult to judge offensive and defensive linemen from a standpoint of their actual power and can they move someone, can they stop someone. There's no power rushers or things of that nature going on right now. So I think from a standpoint of, hey, does he have the ability to stay on his feet? Absolutely. So that's a plus. Does he have the ability to move and shadow? He shows all that stuff that we were able to see on film. But in the NFL, it's a little bit different. I mean, the guys that are across from you, the defensive linemen, they are powerful, powerful men. And, you have to be able to show that you can stop them to be able to play in this league.
Hearing some of the comments from some of the veterans the last couple of weeks, it sounds like there's a real sense of taking ownership from the players. How important is that to develop this time of year, and has that evolved over your time?
Well, I think the ownership piece is a very important thing. I think that for me as a coach, I've always told the players this one story. A lot of times in my career, I'd sit in a room and the coach would say, "Hey, this is your team," but yet the team doesn't have a chance to take any ownership in it. And I think it's a very fine line of what you have to watch for. I think there's certain things, expectations that I have as the head coach or our coordinators have or assistant coaches have. But we want to make sure that we're communicating with our players that we have the same type of expectations of how we want to look and how we want to practice. And I think that's important. And then also I think when we get into, we have a committee that we'll put in place. I don't do that now because it is early in the year, but they'll be part of that ownership type of taking, and the team will have some of those things, and I think that is an important part of what you do.
What kind of things have you seen out of Unique Ngakoue this offseason?
I don't. It's funny. I don't. He never seems to not. God bless you. He never seems to not impress, and every day he's always. I think I can't speak for the overall reason of why he's such a great player. In other words, there's so many things that go into it. That's why I can't speak for it. But one of the things that I see, which is amazing, is that every day he comes with a genuine purpose now to really improve his game. And really from a technical standpoint, I would say probably, and I've been around a lot of offensive linemen, defensive linemen, and a lot of great ones. And, but he reminds me of some of those players that come in and really focuses in on what he wants to work on and goes out there and he's very competitive. And I think now that I've been around him for some time, I think it's very easy to see why he is so successful. Why he's had success in this league and why I think he'll continue to have success in this league because of the work that he puts in.
What are your thoughts on?
What's your thoughts about your for practice squad player, what type of jump did you expect for a guy like Tim Cook who been cut, been on practice squad, came back? What do you look for?
I go back to the same thing. Technically, the coach speak and everything is, hey, you want some identifying characteristics on those players, height, weight, speed, something that, separates them, that puts them into that category. But I really look at those players as players that we're trying to develop to be starters. My mind is, I look at the practice squad and I tell this to the coaches is that, hey, listen, if we have an injury and we have someone on the practice squad at that position, that's the person that we're going to pull up. So this way it goes back to kind of what our conversations were last week. Coach everyone like they're going to be a starter. Coach everyone like they're going to be a starter because in the way that my philosophy and what I believe in is the guys on the practice squad, those are the next guys up. Now if we don't have someone at that position per se, then you got to go on the street. Well, that's a difficult thing to do. Just think someone gets injured, you bring someone in on a Monday and Tuesday, and then all of a sudden you got to get them ready to play on a Sunday. I mean, that's tough. You know, so for me, you know, the practice squad guys, we want to see that jump. We want to see, you know, the first thing I look for is, you know, they've been in all the meetings last year, so I look at how much knowledge of the system they have. You know, do they really truly understand what we're trying to get done from a standpoint of when they go out there and having a full, I guess, like I just said, knowledge of what they have to do. You know, it's different because when you're on the scout team, you kind of get a card, you know, and it kind of has everyone drawn out there, and it kind of shows you what to do. And that's why I think when you watch players that run off of cards, and I can only speak for myself, you'll see the best out of them because they put a card up and they see what they have to do, and you see the athletic ability in it. Whole lot different process though when you get in the huddle. You know, and the card has the defense on it too, or you know, vice versa for those players. So all of a sudden, when you're in the huddle, now you got to, you know, you got to hear it, you got to process the information, you got to go out there. You don't know what defense is going to be on the field, and then now you have to go and perform. That's a whole different level. And then we look to see how many times you can do it in practice and be consistent, and then we'll judge it from a game of, hey, listen, when you go into this game, how many times can you do it, be consistent and know what to do, but now you have to have results and be able to do it at a winning level.
What are your thoughts on D.D. Westbrook so far in this camp?
I think, again, he's coming along. I've seen him make some good plays. I think, you know, you've seen some speed out of him. I think that he's been putting in work, you know, since he's been here. I still think that, you know, it's the same thing. You know, just keep working, keep going, and see where we can go with him.
How often do you bring a guy in just for like a one-on-one chat in your office?
I try to do at least every day.
Just at least one person every day?
I try to, yeah. I mean, I can't put a number on it, but I mean, I like to get 3 or 4, you know, if I can. I mean, it depends on, you know, what it is. I just think that, you know, part of it is, you know, some of the guys that are new, I try to sit down with a little bit and not with any agenda, except to kind of just get to know each other and just talk. And, you know, genuinely, I want to see how they're doing. You know, how are they fitting in? How do they feel? You know, is there anything that you see? Is there anything that you're not comfortable with? Anything I can explain to you? And, you know, just making sure that, you know, I think just want to make sure that they're doing okay. Because I really believe if you're doing okay and everything's going well, then we should see the best of you, you know, when you're on the football field. So I think it's important to build that relationship. It's something that maybe I haven't done in the past, you know, when I first started. But I think it's important, so I try to, you know, go through the locker room, go through there, and I don't know, when you say sit down, you know, it might be passing in the hallway, hey, how's it going? Come on over here, let's talk for a minute. Situations like that. I don't say, hey, listen, I got to meet with you at 1 o'clock today, bring them into my office. So it's much more casual than per se going to the principal's office.
Have you seen any changes in Marquise with so much newness in the receiver room and still some youth there? Is Marquise Lee any different?
Yeah, I don't. No, I don't see that. I don't. You know, I think people, you know, when they come to work, they come in and it's athletic and it's competitive, and I don't think that ever really changes unless you get a. You know, sometimes if you get a dynamic personality in a room, that might tend to quiet the room down a little bit. Or, you know, sometimes if you get a personality that, you know, that's not going to work for you on a football team, it can kind of divide the room, and that's not what you're looking for. But I don't see any difference. The one thing I do see in our wide receiver room that I think is important, I think it's going to help us, is how competitive it is. I think we have a lot of players that are going to have the ability to be on the field. We have a lot of players that can play multiple positions. So I think that, you know, I don't have to sit here. You don't have to write that. You know, in other words, like sometimes you don't have to write it. I don't have to say it in front of the team. I think those players know it, and the reason why I say that is because you can see that on the field.
Are you pleased with what you're seeing out of Marquise Lee?
I like to see. I've always believed that, you know, competition brings out the best in everyone. I have no issues with it. I think it's a very competitive sport. So for me. I try, you know, sometimes, you know, you try the best you can to create it, because if you don't have competition, if it doesn't come from the people that are around you, or if it doesn't come from within, you know, then you're looking at the worst thing that can happen, and that's complacency.
All right, last one. Go ahead, John. Do you feel you have to have a second power back similar to Leonard? I think Dave Caldwell said something about that. Do you? feel that way too?
I mean, I just know when I've talked before my whole entire career, I'd like to have 2 big backs and a 1 change of pace back. So do you have to have it? No, not if the first back can go as many times as possible. If he can carry the load throughout 16 games, which I think is difficult, in this day and age. But I like it. I think we're set. I think we do have some big backs, and I think we have some good change of pace backs. I think that TJ's come in. He's done a nice job. With Leonard being out, and I think that Corey Grant has done a nice job, along with Brandon Wiles and a couple of those guys. We're looking at some of those fullbacks because Tommy hasn't been out there. So it's a competitive group. So I necessarily like those. I like those big backs.